Hey everyone, it's Rob from Zul Gaming. Today I bring you another class guide for Darkest Dungeon. This time is for the Occultist. The Occultist is a character that can do many things actually. He can be a damage dealer, he can be a debuffer, a healer, he can mark, he can stun, he can move enemy targets. Yeah, as you might say, he's a jack of all trades. But with that, as they say as well, he's a master of none. So you're going to find him lacking in certain areas. I still enjoy him, and I still think he's a good class. He has very good synergy in mark groups, for example, or groups that have a abomination, which is pretty much, the occultist is the only healer you can bring into a group that has an abomination anyway. So he's good for that as well. Going into his combat skills, I can mention Sacrificial Stab. I think it's a good ability because it has a good range. It affects the three first slots on the enemy side, and even though it doesn't have the best accuracy base, when it does hit, it has a huge crit mod, which is 12%. And if you're fighting against Eldritch, you'll find yourself doing a lot of damage because it adds that extra 35%. So this is something I usually equip when I play him. Abyssal Artillery has its uses. Low accuracy base though, so be careful with that. Decent crit mod. It's good against Eldritch once again, and the good thing is it can finish off those last two slots in the enemy side. For example, if you're focusing a stress dealer, which you should, I think, in most fights, he's going to be a good finisher. For example, if they have a little left on their health. So, yep, that's why I equip it pretty much. Weakening Curse is a very nice debuff, I think, because it's going to lower damage by 40% on the enemy side, and it has a pretty decent base as well, 139%. So it usually attaches to the enemies, and you can stack it. I think you can attach it or debuff them 2 or 3 times with this ability. So I recommend it. Now, word reconstruction is kind of tricky. I have I guess, a love-hate relationship with this ability because it heals from 0 to 20. And I find myself in situations where I really need a heal on a certain character, and then he heals him for either 0 or 2 or 3, which is not great, of course. It has good potential though, because let's say you have a character that's almost dying, and then you throw that heal, and it goes on the right end of his range, and he heals him for 20, and above that you get a crit, then it's pretty much gonna heal him for all his health. And it's very nice to see those high heals for either 34 or 36 HP. Something to mention about this heal though is it does have a bleed component to it, and it's going to apply a bleed on your characters sometimes. And I say sometimes because it has a very low base. So, and you'll notice it as you level up. The lower your characters are, the more chance they're going to get the bleed. But as you level up your team, it hardly attaches. Like at level 6 and level 5, you hardly see it being attached to one of your characters. So I usually ignore this portion of the ability. When it does get when the character does get the bleed though, it's not too serious. It's only 3 points for 3 rounds, so it's not a big deal. This ability, the Vulnerability Hex, is I think a very nice one because it's a mark, but it's, I think, the only mark in Darkest Dungeon that actually does damage. It's minimal, but hey, it still helps you with a little bit of damage. I think the most it does is 2, and I think it crit for 4. So it's good in that respect, and it lowers it lowers the enemy's dodge by 20. So, and of course it's going to do what you need to do, right? Mark the target. This is why the Occultist is good in a mark-friendly group. So you guessed it, yep. With an Arbalist, a Houndmaster, or a Bounty Hunter, or even a Grave Robber. So pretty good. Hand from the Abyss is a stun. Not the best stun out there, I would say, unless you're running Dark Dungeons, which that way you can ignore that torch -5, because every time you use it, it's gonna lower the torch by 5 points. Not a big deal, but you know, it's a stun. It's there. It's gonna help you out if you need it. But I usually do not equip it. I prefer other characters to stun targets if I use stuns. Demon's Pull I hardly use, but you know, it's there. It's an ability that's going to pull the back two slots of your enemy side to the front. So if you have a few range characters that can reach those back slots, then you can, I guess, use this ability to pull them forward. The good thing about it, if you want to see added value to the ability, is that it clears all corpses. So it's going to get those pesky corpses out of the way. So, you know, I guess it has its uses, but I hardly find myself equipping it. My suggested build, or you know, what I would take to a dungeon, is the one you see on the screen right now, which is very balanced, I think. And let's say if I have another healer in the group, I'd probably be rid of the heal and just add the weakening curse. So this is how I usually go. So either like this or like that, and that's what I would recommend. Alright, speaking of his base stats. As you can guess, you would probably focus more on the left side of his base stats. So anything that's going to bump your hit points, your dodge, and your speed. Prot, I guess you could go with that too if you feel like it. I find it doesn't do that great of a job, but you know, it's gonna be depending on your play style. I usually don't do anything with him for the right side of the base stats, either accuracy, crit, or damage. I usually don't touch unless I'm building, let's say, a damage dealing occultist, which I rarely do. I think I did it once and I didn't like it. So anything that's going to bump those HP dodge is good, and speed. As you can see, he has very low hit points. You see it at 39 right now, but that's actually not his base. That's because he's got that quirk up there, the tough. His base hit points is actually 35, so it's pretty low. So you can imagine that he can pretty much get one shot in the higher dungeons. All right, when it comes to quirks, I would suggest Tough, which is gonna upgrade his hit points. I also can suggest let's see, Quick Draw is good because of that extra speed on the first round. Also in that same lane, On Guard is decent. It's gonna give you 4 speed, but it's gonna add 5 dodge in the first round as well. I am kind of waiting on this guy to be able to get Evasive, which is gonna add 5 dodge, and you can do Deadly as well, which is gonna do one crit, and it's 1 crit in general, so it's gonna help both your heals so they crit more. I know 1% might not seem much, but you know, it's that 1% that will make you either, I guess, crit or not, you know, in a certain situation. So I'm actually waiting for that. Another one you can have is Hard Skinned as well, which is gonna add 10% protection. Once again, I wouldn't really have that, but it's if something you like and you're not getting anything else, then you can use that. All right, when it comes to camping skills, his camping skills, like I've said before, the first 3 are interchangeable. Depends on what you have on your team. When it comes to his class specific, he's got Abandon Hope, very low time cost, which is what makes it good. It's going to lower your stress specifically by 25, but it has a chance to adding 10 or 5 stress to your whole party, and it's a check for every single of your characters. So it's a give or take. I think it's very good if you're getting a lot of stress on your occultist, and I can see it as give less stress to my occultist and then spread it amongst my team pretty much. Dark Ritual is gonna lower the torchlight by 100. It's gonna add 15 stress, and it's gonna heal you all this to heal one companion for 50% HPs, and it removes mortality debuffs. But to me, it's not the best ability out there. I've never used it, and it's very costly, and it just does too much negative for just 50% HP, unless you really want to remove those mortality debuffs. All right, Dark Strength is gonna give it. It's kind of the other way around than the Abandon Hope, but it gives a buff. So it's gonna give you 15 stress, and it's gonna buff one companion by 20% damage. So it's good, and I use it for boss fights. For example, I find myself buffing either my Arbalest or a Bounty Hunter. So those hits are just harder, and once they crit, it's just exponential. I find it's a good ability for only 2 time cost. Unspeakable Commune. I like it because it's going to prevent nighttime ambush, and it does give all your companions 7 stress, but 7 stress is manageable. So it's better to just prevent those nighttime ambushes. So whenever I don't have another character that can prevent nighttime ambush, I use this one. When it comes to his trinkets, I can recommend anything that's gonna increase his hit points, dodge, speed, as well as anything that's gonna give you extra healing if you're using him as a healer. Some trinkets I can recommend early on is the Tenacity Ring, mainly for the dodge. Also the Swift Cloak for the extra speed. I can also recommend the Gambler's Charm for the hit points, because it's a decent amount. 15% goes a long way, especially early on. Also, his class specific are pretty decent if you're using him to debuff. So the Cursed Incense is an option. Another option, if you're using him for DPS, would be the Sacrificial Cauldron. It's going to add 15% damage at the cost of stress, though. Another one I used early on was the Life Crystal, which is going to add quite a bit of hit points, 20%. And I usually, funny that they're together, I usually use them in unison with the Feather Crystal, because it's going to balance that speed out. So, and it's going to give me extra dodge as well. Another one I can recommend if you're running dungeons with high light, if you're maintaining above 75, is the Camouflage Cloak, because it's going to add 15 extra dodge as well. That's when it comes to the early game. Now, for higher levels, what I can recommend is you can use the cauldrons if you want. If you're doing, if you're going into a dungeon to stun and debuff, it also adds some crit. This is a pretty good one. Another one that I find myself using is the Overture Box, because it gives me hit points and dodge. So all that I want, and the cost is very low, so only -2 accuracy. I also use Junia's Head when I'm healing with the Occultist, because it's going to add 30% more healing to my skills. Another one that I use is the Ancestral's Bottle because it's going to add 25% max HP and not so much stress. You know, the negative side is not that huge. All right. When it comes to the trophies, I can recommend a couple. One I use consistently is Wilbur's Flag because of that stun resist and dodge. Also, another one is the let's see, this one, the Prophet's Eye, because of the speed. Yep, that's pretty much what I use for my Occultist. What I usually run is Wilbur's Flag along with the Overture box up here, and I think that that's a pretty good combination. Let's see if I can find it here. So as you can see, it's going to bring my hit points to 44, which is somewhat acceptable. But you know, my dodge is 48, so I'm going to be dodging quite a bit. So this is usually what I bring, and yeah, it's worked for me so far. So. Yep, this has been the guide for the Occultist, and if you liked it, feel free to hit that like button, subscribe, and you know, read that description for my Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, as well as my email. And see you